Jordan may need to mediate escalating violence between Palestinian factions and Israel. Today, Jordan is hosting a political security meeting between involved factions, according to Jordanian government officials. Egyptian and United States representatives will also be present. Israel will have National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi and Shin Bet Internal Security Chief Ronen Bar in attendance. The meeting comes after an Israeli raid in Nablus to capture a terrorist who murdered a policeman ended in a gun battle that left 11 Palestinians dead and anywhere between 80 and 100 others injured. The goal here is building trust between all sides and to gain economic measures to improve the lives of Palestinians. Channel 12 in Israel reported the government will limit entry into Palestinian towns in the near future to try to calm tensions. Palestinian officials have demanded a complete halt to Israeli security operations and all settlement activity. At the moment, all formal communications between Israel and the Palestinian Authority are effectively suspended. Now, for far more on this, we are joined in studio by Ariel Asaran, that's our I-24 News Middle East correspondent, and Owen Alterman, the I-24 News senior diplomatic correspondent. Thank you both for joining us. Let's jump right into this with you first. Owen, does Jordan really have a lot of power when it comes down to mediating this conflict right now?
It's an important role for the Jordanians to play, Ariel, but the reality is they're not the only ones there, of course. The United States is also there with a reasonably high level of representation, the Assistant Secretary of State, an official from the National Security Council. So maybe a similar level of representation we're seeing from the Israeli side and from other sides. The United States will also be there at the table, at the summit, as well as the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Israelis, and the Palestinians. So obviously the Jordanians are the ones convening this, and I think they will want to see this. I defer to Ariel on this as an important role for them to play with their public opinion. But at the end of the day, I think Israel also has its own interest in this. Obviously, a lot can be achieved through the raids themselves and through security operations themselves in preventing attacks and preventing violence. But the fact of Israel sending its National Security Advisor, Tzachi Hanegbi, and the head of the Shin Bet to the summit shows that I think the Israeli government, and even this Israeli government, sees a value in talking, and that talks can achieve something that the raids cannot. And that having some kind of dialogue with the Palestinians and maybe having them make concessions or at least coordinate with you, even if it's done reasonably quietly, can be something that yield results, especially with Ramadan set to start just 3 weeks from now. As we know, in recent years, Ramadan has proven to be a time of increased tension and sadly violence.
Well, it seems like the Palestinian interest here is an end to these Israeli raids. Can Israel achieve these security ends if they're forced to make that sort of concession?
No, I don't think that concession's on the table for any Israeli government, certainly not this one. So the Palestinians are not going to get that. Obviously, they're going to ask for that. But maybe there can be some concession made in that direction by the Israeli government if it feels it doesn't need to. As we all know, Ariel, these raids are often targeted at people who are going to imminently commit attacks or gathering weapons to commit attacks. And if that's the case, one would imagine the raids will continue, but maybe they can be carried out in a different kind of way, maybe with some kind of coordination with the Palestinians. Maybe there can be something done on the Palestinian side to take action against these groups without Israel having to take action. I suspect all of these will be out there on the table in Jordan during the summit, and maybe Israel can make concessions in other arenas towards the Palestinians. At the end of the day, the raids are obviously helpful in preventing terror attacks, but I think this shows that talks are also an important tool of Israel's diplomacy and of its national security strategy, including with the Palestinians.
Yeah, thanks for that, Owen, but I want to move on to Ariel because we do have to look at the Palestinian side of this as well. And we're actually seeing protests in the West Bank against this security political meeting right now.
Right, Ariel. So overnight we did see a bunch of different protests, marches of protests against this meeting. The sides are calling it a summit. I don't think this is really a summit. They're calling it a summit just because there's a few sides meeting together. What is different is that leading up to Ramadan, which I think Owen described it aptly, that's the main reason why this meeting is going on. We haven't seen these discussions in previous years, so this is added value. But if we're looking at how the Palestinians are reacting to this, besides obviously the leadership that is sending the executive, the head of the executive committee of the PLO, Hussein Sheikh, as well as the head of Palestinian intelligence, Majid Faraj, that is the official delegation. But Palestinian factions across the West Bank, mainly in Jenin, are refusing this meeting, calling on the PA, calling it treason on their behalf. Let's look at a statement that the factions in Jenin recorded yesterday, sending to the PA.
This meeting is against the interest of our people and serves the criminal Zionist occupation, which does not stop its aggression against our people, our land, and our sanctities. The participation of the Palestinian Authority in this meeting is the opposite direction to the national consensus. The Palestinian factions reject this meeting and calls for its cancellation.
As you pointed out, the Palestinian factions have their own mind on this matter, and what we've seen is that a lot of the operatives, the factions, and the lone wolves that have been behind much of the violence coming out of the West Bank lately are not operating with any green light from the Palestinian Authority. If that's the case, what will be accomplished even if the PA and Israel can come to some sort of agreement here?
Well, that's not quite clear, Ariel. That's a very important question, because the main reason, at least if you ask Israeli military officials, why is Israel operating in the West Bank, mainly in the northern part in the cities of Jenin and Nablus, that's because the PA is not operating there, because there's been this void, this vacuum that in this in that situation, local, more geographic-based factions have emerged, yes, with the support mainly financially and with arms by the main, better established factions, but these are more independently operating, and that makes it very difficult not only for Israeli forces to try and thwart and uproot, but also for Palestinian police. Now, what we're expected to see in this meeting is Palestinians are going to ask for a request to increase the number of police officers. The number 10,000 is being thrown around to try and bolster their capabilities in order to be able to enforce their sovereignty, if one can call it that, in the northern part of the West Bank. Again, like Owen, I'm not quite sure what this summit, so to speak, will lead to, but the fact that all sides are talking, Israel, Palestinians, Jordan, Egypt, and the U.S., I think that is important in and of itself.
Well, it's definitely a bit of a conundrum here, and it's not going to be a very clear solution. Thank you both, Owen and Ariel, for explaining these matters.